So you want to create a SaaS product demo video? Well, you've come to the right place because I'm going to do a walkthrough of the entire process from start to finish, right from planning and figuring out which features you should actually demonstrate in your product demo video, through to editing, distribution, and I'm also going to offer some tips and advice along the way from my experience creating hundreds of product demos for SaaS products over the last couple of years. The example product that I'm going to use today is actually going to be one of our customers, Flagsmith. They are a feature flagging tool for SaaS products. Let's make a plan. If you spend a little bit of time thinking about what stage your audience is in, is this the first time that they're seeing your product in action? Or have you already had a call with them and it's something that you're leaving behind after that demo call in order to give them something they can share with their team? Let's do a worked example of that planning process. Okay, so I know that the audience that's going to see this demo is pretty new to Flagsmith because we're embedding it on their homepage. The absolute biggest mistake that I see people make when creating product demo videos is including way too many features. I would encourage you to only include 1 to 3 features because otherwise people will just switch off. If you're a SaaS company that has sales reps or you're a founder and you're creating this demo for yourself, I think the best place to start is reflecting on what actually gets demonstrated to prospects in a live sales environment. Here's what I mean by only showing one feature in this demo. We're just going to keep it really simple and only demonstrate one feature, and that is going to be creating a feature flag. And we're basically going to capture 2 different stages. It's going to be creating a new feature flag and enabling and disabling that feature flag. I appreciate that this might feel really basic, but when you start actually going through this planning process, you're going to realize that it's hard to figure out exactly what you should show and what you shouldn't show. It's going to make you so much more efficient when it comes to capturing your app and also editing down that video. Speaking of capturing, let's move on to that now. Capturing your screen. When it comes to which software to use, I'm going to offer 3 different suggestions that come at different price points and have different pros and cons depending on what you're trying to achieve. My first suggestion is HowdyGo, which is an interactive product demo tool. This is a little bit different to a product demo video tool. It allows you to capture your SaaS product in HTML and CSS, and then during the editing process, you can actually edit the text and images and apply zooms, adjust the scroll position of a particular screen, all during the editing stage, rather than having to do all of those things perfectly when you're actually capturing your screen. If you just want to capture your screen and you're not really bothered about editing your app after you've finished capturing it or working collaboratively with your team, then I can recommend Screen.studio. It's a one-time purchase, it's got a really great UX, and you can easily add things like zooms. If you're really on a budget, I can recommend OBS, which is actually a free product. It just takes a little bit of time to get used to everything, and I found it quite easy to use, but I'm personally pretty comfortable with tech. So we're now going to capture the Flagsmith application using the HowdyGo Chrome extension. So I hit start recording, and then every time we click, it'll create a new step in our demo recording. So we just click on create feature. We can actually name this and give it a description in any format we want because I can actually tweak those things during the editing process. We scroll down, click create feature, close this. Now we're just going to enable the feature, create change request, click create, close this modal, and then hit stop. And then you'll see that it's uploading the recording to HowdyGo and it'll launch us into the HowdyGo editor. Basically try to get your product demo as short as you possibly can while still having it make sense. This is one of the reasons why using HowdyGo is so much easier, because if you want something gone from your demo, you can just hit delete and then the step's gone. And if you need to add it back, you can just do that again and insert it. This makes the editing process so much easier than doing the clip trim, whatever you need to do in a normal video editor, because it's really simple to just click delete. If you realize that you've missed a step, it's really easy to just click duplicate. And then you can move this click location to anywhere else on the page. And if you realize that you need to scroll down, you can even do that during the editing process. If you really realize that you've missed a step, you can insert a new step by clicking insert step, then click add new, capture with extension, which puts the extension into an insert step mode, and it'll take care of making sure that your UI is correctly sized for this demo. If you're thinking about including things like stock footage or background music, I would really encourage you to think about what the viewer is trying to achieve when watching your product demo. In my experience, they're generally just trying to understand what your product does, how it works, and what it looks like. When you're editing your demo in HowdyGo, you can use these annotations in order to guide people through the guided tour. But if you'd like to use a video bubble, for instance, you can do that too by clicking here and then recording your introduction to the demo. Interactive product demos are a little bit different to a normal product demo video because it allows the viewer to basically step through the demo at their own pace and take in your UI and really understand what's actually going on. It also means they can do things like scrolling or hovering over buttons and really getting a feel for how your app actually works. You can also introduce things like chapters to create a little bit of structure, which introduces this chapter navigator, which is really helpful for viewers as they step through your demo. Inevitably, you're going to capture something wrong, particularly if you've captured using Screen.studio or OBS, which means that you have to go back and recapture things again. One thing I would recommend is to basically not capture your voice while you're capturing your screen, and instead go back and insert your voice recording later. It'll just make it a little bit easier to make sure that you have a consistent recording experience and that you're able to clip and trim and insert little clips throughout your demo as required. As I mentioned before, one of the absolute coolest things about Howdy is the ability to edit HTML after you've captured it. So here you can see that we've got example feature as the name of the feature. I can just click here and change it to something else. So I'm going to call this real-time data. The other thing you can do is use blur to hide elements that you don't really want anybody to see. You can also apply zooms with basically one click. Don't add too many zooms. It can actually be a little bit dizzying if you've got too many. Most people really want to see the context about what you're interacting with so that they can understand how your product actually works. Unless you're exporting your product demo in order to use it on LinkedIn or TikTok or YouTube, use them in an occasional circumstance, for example, pointing out a really specific thing in your UI, but then zooming out and letting people experience the app as it was intended. I'm not going to step through every single aspect of the editing process because I think it's really unique to the individual applications, but I do have a few tips to help you get the most out of this editing process. You should always be trying to remove unnecessary steps from your demo. For example, I often see people record their login process, but it's not really something that people find that interesting, so you might as well cut it out. You should always edit your annotations or your voiceover script to be as concise as possible while still conveying the message that you want to convey. Keep in mind the context that you're planning on sharing this demo. For example, if you're going to embed this demo into your homepage, you need to be using language which allows for people who don't necessarily have a great in-depth understanding of what your product actually does. When explaining what happens in your product demo, I would encourage you to not just describe exactly what's happening on screen. Instead, try to lean towards describing the benefits that the user actually gets from doing those actions in your application. This is an opportunity to tie what the user sees on screen with the value proposition of your product. Like any piece of good content, the hardest part is actually the sharing and distribution process. So let's talk about that now. Before we go there, can you give me a like or a subscribe? I would really appreciate that. Thank you. Sharing is caring. So you've planned, captured, and edited your beautiful demo. Now it's time to share it. You have a few different options here. So if we publish it, you can take this share link and put it into a new browser and just instantly get a shareable, clickable product demo that you can actually scroll around in. Or alternatively, you can copy the embed code and put it into your content management system. Anywhere that you would normally embed an iframe, you can embed an interactive product demo. We often get asked the question, should we gate our demos? Now, you can gate your demos in Howdy. You can set it up so that you have to put in your details in order to unlock access to seeing the product demo. However, I would recommend in most circumstances to avoid this if you can. We see a 30% reduction in the number of people viewing demos if they are gated, and it really depends on what your goal is with this content. You're not getting the most value out of it if you are gating your demo because of that reduction in the number of views. But then equally, if your business is really tied to seeing new prospects and leads coming into your CRM, then I can kind of understand it, and I can understand why there's pushback from the business to create those gating mechanisms. But my personal recommendation would be to avoid it. And the final option is to export your demo as a GIF or video. And this will create a looping GIF that you can include in emails. We love to use these for feature release emails. You can also get a WebM file, which is ideal for embedding onto a website. You can kind of check out how that works on our homepage. Here's an example. And finally, you can export a RAW file in .mp4 as an HD video, which you can then carry over into whatever video editor you're using. My tip when it comes to distributing or sharing your demo is to make sure that it's as easy as possible to access and it's clear that it's something that they can interact with. Often we see people with vague titles above their demos. It's much better to say something like try an interactive demo or try an instant demo. As an alternative to gating your demos, you can actually use a CTA step at the end of the demo, which basically allows you to set these buttons to whatever URL you want. And my recommendation here is to put a UTM_source parameter on the URL so that you can track the ones which are coming from a demo. You can also insert lead capture details into this particular step. So if people have gotten through to the end of your demo and they're still interested and would love to have a chat, you can plug in those things here. My other tip is to not treat your demos like a static piece of content that you never need to update and never need to iterate on. Let's talk about reviews. Review time. Reviewing your demos is something that we actually spend a lot of time doing as part of our support package for Howdy Go. And the reason we do that is because most people are not used to product demos being a piece of content which regularly gets updated. It's not that it needs to be constantly updated. In fact, I would suggest it's better to have a product demo that's using an outdated UI than it is to not have one at all. But what I will say is that it's an opportunity to consistently improve how people are perceiving your product using data to make these decisions. This is a demo of Howdy Go Analytics. It basically allows you to see each stage of a viewer's life cycle from initial impression of the demo through to engagement, completions, and how many people clicked on the CTA at the end. Now, what's really cool about this is that you can actually drill down into each of the individual demos and then see broken down step by step where people are dropping off and what people are seeing in your demos. So this allows you to basically break it down by percentage and see that, for example, this first step has a 72% view rate. And then further down, there's a real drop off from step 7 to step 8, which might imply that step 7 needs to be edited to improve how people are actually viewing this demo and make sure that they're reaching the end of the demo. If the idea of reviewing your own demo analytics sounds a little bit stressful, then no worries, because we actually do it a lot for our customers and we'll make really specific suggestions on how they can improve their demos, or even sometimes jump in there and do it for them. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. Hopefully it's given you the confidence to create your own product demo. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching along and I hope to see you in Howdy Go soon.